Okay. So, how do you go about starting a picture?
Sure, yeah. So the best thing for me and what we'll definitely be doing in the class is focusing on getting the sketch before we even go into any of the detail. And I think that's a really big point is I'm not a huge fan of like finding the piece. I really want to figure it out before I waste time rendering it, right? I don't
Hmm.
want to make this huge rendered mess and I've totally forgot what the image is about by the end. So a lot of times I will make little composition sketches. I'll pull some up in a second. And what I'll do is just simply like a few values, maybe just kind of grayscale paintings. Show you like some of these things. So this is kind of what I ask for students is to bring in these sorts of things where it's a very clear image. It's kind of high contrast. We can tell what the story is, what the mood is, what the shape of the light is going to be doing already. So from there, it's more like a coloring book. We're not changing much. We're just going to make it better, but we're not going to change it, right?
Yeah, that's a really neat point too to emphasize that so much of it is the black and white, and then the color is just a coloring book style.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
and
So
I've seen this
you
was exactly what Dylan Cole's class. They did this in the first 2 weeks as well. So this is great.
yeah, so we'll definitely be talking about like how to churn out different ideas and that sort of thing and to pick a shot for the story you want to tell because whatever the story is, there's so many different things you're going to have to change. So a lot of times what students tell me their story is, it doesn't really look like that in the image because they're not choosing the right camera angle, they're not choosing the right lighting, the right perspective to really tell that story. I call it the one word, right? So it's when you look at the image, what's the one word you're saying? And you only get one. So it's spooky, scary, adventure, horror, whatever, right? There's no complicated backstory of the character's mother-in-law and whatever. I don't care about that. Just the one word is like, oh, this is just whatever, a beautiful scene or this is a sad scene. So that's what we're establishing here. And then from there, this is the hard part. From there, you're just making art. You're just painting after that. So as long as you have a good sketch, you can make a good painting.
That's great. That's great.
And yeah, so I will do that on my own. Obviously, they're not nearly as good. These are just for me, so I'm not usually showing these to people, but it's just a scribble of, okay, there's a rock and it's going to be lit from the side, and there's kind of a zigzag of water. Literally just notes for me, and I want the sky to be kind of dark. So from there, it doesn't change much, as you can see, right? It's like the
Yeah.
same idea. It's just more color now. So we'll, I guess based on the sketch, I'll decide if it's something I need 3D for, if it's something I can solve with paint and photos, or whatever technique I need to do. But definitely we do the round of sketches first and choose the best idea.
All right. And then do you use reference at this early stage? How do you start to establish these values?
Absolutely. So reference is critical. So I will gather probably for a couple hours all the types of things I would need. Just because you don't know what's out there, and a lot of people make stuff up that's not as cool as the real world, and how are you going to make it cooler? How are you going to make a fantasy world that's less cool than the world we already live in, right?
Yeah.
First, you got to see what's possible. So I'll just look at old paintings and lots of photography in natural lighting, nothing really photoshopped. I want to try and get very clear lighting ideas. So stuff for textures. And this is before I've made any decisions. I don't know what I want to do yet. I'm just looking like, oh, this is cool, a frozen lake. Maybe I could have that in there. Or these kind of glaciers with the wispy clouds in the back. So eventually, I will get a few pieces that I call my master reference. So that I'll show you. Lots of these. So it'd probably be like this one right here. It's in here somewhere. And this picture right here. So those two, I'm like, that's my time of day. That's my color palette. I found it. So now, with those just very limited choice reference, I can tell, okay, I know what my shadow color is, I know what my light color is, I know what my atmosphere color is. So there's nothing left to be made up. I don't want to make the wrong color choices here, right? So I'm trying to find something that's as close to what I imagined as possible. And I could totally exaggerate it, alter it, shift it, but I want to at least start with the best possible color palette to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I love that idea of master reference. That's great because a lot of times we get inundated with that sea of reference and there's like 20,000 things that you've pulled.
Right, and that stuff's all great for the painting, but for starting, how do you distill that? You have, 200 pieces of reference. You got to pick one or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take that, and from there, boom, I'm like, all right, that's my light color, that's my atmosphere color. There you go, right?
Yeah. And then how early or how often do you get into 3D versus 2D?
It really depends on the piece. I usually do a sketch and then go right into 3D. And the amount of 3D really changes based on what I need. If it's an architecture heavy thing, I would probably spell it out a little more than I've done here. This is just a rock and some water.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to like go into ZBrush and sculpt out this rock to high heavens or whatever. I know I'm gonna paint on top of that to a large degree. Something like a castle or a building, I'm not really going to change the design of it or anything, so I'll get that into 3D pretty close to what I want it to be. And then from there I'm just trying to massage it and make it look nice and, stylize the shapes and exaggerate it, but I'm not changing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So, and this even looks like it's a very low res rock or maybe decimated.
Yeah, it's low res for me on purpose because I wanted to paint the rock. I didn't want the 3D to give me too much, and that's just a personal thing. I wanted to kind of figure out how to make the rock look nice on my own. I just wanted to see what the light would be doing so that I could make a more informed painting.
Right. And are you rendering this in ZBrush, or how are you getting the color and the warm cool?
This is all done in Modo, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, whatever 3D tools you guys use, I'm sure are awesome. It's like I used Maya for a while. I switched to Modo, and they're all good. Just whatever you find is really good.
And this is going to be an important part for the class too, right? People will be developing some 3D aspect, ZBrush, Modo, Maya, whatever.
Yeah, definitely some 3D knowledge is definitely needed for sure. One of them programs, totally needed.
Great.
And that's something just for the industry in general. You gotta know 3D nowadays, so if you don't have it by this class, you'll need it for the industry.
Yeah,
sure.
we've heard that at every level. Even people working as art directors, with James Cameron. I mean, they have to have 3D. It's not enough to paint anymore.
The key though is not getting bummed by that. The key is getting excited by all the possibilities you now have as an artist. The ease of creation, the choices you have, to me, I think it's wonderful. Every new program that comes out, I'm so excited to see what the possibilities are. I feel like the second you get bummed out about that stuff, you're kind of like you're on the way to getting extinct. If you're like getting stubborn about what programs you're using and stuff like that, it's just not really the way things are going. We're only going to get more technology in this industry.
Until the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, but I'm prepared, man.
Okay, good. So tell me one thing that you think is possible. Like, how does the technology help you? Is there one thing that you can do now that in 2D is just absurdly difficult?
It's not a matter that like 2D can't do it. It's just the ease of it, of picking a shot, for instance. you could have this same shot, and now we could rotate the camera and make 3 paintings of it, right? So on a production level, not even as an artist, but just as a guy producing stuff for a project. You're painting a castle, you rotate the camera, and now you have a new painting composition for the other part of the level. You don't have to go back to the drawing board and start over. You've already made a level, and you zoom in and you rotate, and now you have a cool new concept painting to keep exploring. It's like a miniature world you're just moving your camera through. So I think that's amazing.